Nothing like a nice Friday sunset for a nice peaceful drone flight. Out here in the semi-middle of nowhere. Just came out for a bit of a head clearing mission. Just a nice head clearing evening. Why? Why do we need to clear our head a little bit? Well, played last night and it did not go so well, you could say. Actually, it went pretty terribly. Last night I went over to the Win. Plan was the usual drill. Hop into a 5-10 game, assess the situation. Game was not that great, but I happened to have the best seat at the table. Player on my direct right was there to enjoy himself. I was trying to entertain him, and I failed. I failed in my mission. Ended up tangling with some other players at the table, and never really got the situation I was looking for. The game was actually 5-10-20. So as soon as I sat down, every single person at the table was straddling. Not because I sat down, but because that's what they agreed upon before I sat down. Who am I to disagree? And so yeah, we were playing 5-10-20, which is bigger than I usually play. So I guess we can officially check off. I guess we can officially check off the 10-20 game effort. I don't know, not too many hands to really dig into. The one interesting hand, the biggest hand, I guess, was the most interesting one. I open up 8-7 of clubs for middle position. I make it 60, standard open raise. Folds around to the straddler, who makes it $220 to go. Not a very big raise size, somewhere between 3 and 4x. I have a suited connector. Happy to see a flop and play in position. The problem is we're not that deep. We probably have somewhere around $1,500 after his raise, which doesn't really give that much room to maneuver. I think I made a little bit of a misstep there, a little bit of a misjudgment perhaps, but who likes folding suited connectors, you know? So I make the call and we go heads up to a flop. Flop comes down looking pretty good for us. Flop is 7-6-5 with 2 spades and 1 club. So top pair, open ender, backdoor flush draw. He leads out for 330. And like I said, he's only got maybe about 12 or 1300 behind at this point. Maybe between 13 and 1400 maximum. So I don't think I can just flat call here. With the stacks as they are, if I flat call and I don't connect on the turn, he's gonna put a pretty big bet in there or just jam all in, and I'm probably gonna have to let it go at that point. So in order to maximize both my fold equity and my hand equity, I go ahead and raise enough to pot commit the both of us. I make it 1100. He kind of goes into the tank a little bit, but not really too long, and ends up jamming all in. Obviously call it off here. Turn is the ace of spades. River is deuce of clubs. He shows us pocket jacks, and we do not improve versus the overpair. So that one did not go our way. No run good for us there, even though we get it in pretty close to a coin flip, maybe 45 or 46% dog, but pretty close. And with the fold equity that I think I should have there, I think I should have some fold equity. Maybe not a lot because it didn't go too deep into the tank. I don't know how much fold equity we really had, but I have to think there's some. So it seems like my play on the flop is certainly the best play, but I could have made a case for either calling or maybe folding pre-flop, since like I said, we're not that deep. So beyond that, I just got put in a bunch of pretty tough spots. There was several times where I put in a value bet on the river and it got jammed on. So I ended up folding. For a couple of those situations, the player told me that later on he told me that he had it. Caught a couple of bluffs, but they didn't nearly make up for the tough spots, and I could have played better in some spots as well. So the 5-10-20 experiment did not work out in my favor. I should have picked a different game, I think. I didn't take my own advice in this spot. I've been saying that the game selection should be as good as it can be the entire year. Didn't follow my own advice. Ends up with a loss of 3.9K over at the Win. Now you know why I came out here to clear my head a little bit. But we're just gonna have to hop right back in there. It's Friday night, EDC weekend. World Series of Poker is on. This should be quite the busy weekend, and it's time to hop back in there. I'm gonna head over to the Bellagio and get after it. Let's go. Change of plans here. Everywhere is slammed tonight. There are 5-10 games going over here at the Bellagio, but the list is currently 50 deep. There's a few 10-20 games, but that list is 30 deep and not moving. Plan is to go to Caesar's Palace instead. They got 5 2-5 games over there. By the way, this is the best show in Vegas right here. Honestly, one of the last things you want to be doing on a busy Friday night in Vegas is wandering around looking for an open seat somewhere. So this was slightly poor planning on my part. Alright, so been playing the 2-5 here at Caesar's Palace for about an hour and a half, maybe a little bit longer. I've already switched tables twice, currently in the 3rd table. A couple quick hands to get into. Just go over these real quick before getting back after it. So the first hand, middle position opens to 20. I call Queen 10 of hearts on the button. The big blind calls as well. So 3 ways to a flop of Queen Jack 10, flop 2 pair. Checks to me, I bet 35. Big blind folds or initial raise or calls. Turn's a bad card, turn is a king. He checks, I check it back. River's a brick, he checks again. I think there's merit to betting here and turning it into a bluff because it's pretty unlikely that he ever has an ace here. But since I check back the turn, it's also unlikely that I have an ace. So I just check it back, hoping to have some showdown value, and he rolls over King Jack. He turns a better 2 pair, and that's gonna be good for the win. Sorry about all the flashing lights and whatnot going on. I'm chilling here in the sports book at Caesar's Palace. Comfy seats though, pretty comfy seats. In this hand there's 3 limps. I look down at Jack 5 of spades in the small blind. I make the call, big blind checks. So 5 ways to a flop. King 10-9 with 2 spades. Flush draw plus gutter. Checks all the way to the button, who bets $25. I flat call and the cutoff calls as well. So 3 ways to a turn card, which is an offsuit 8. Improves us to an open ender to go along with the flush draw. Check to the button, who bets $75 this time. Pretty interesting decision now, because if we call and whiff, we're left with Jack high. We do have a blocker to the straight. So with that, with those 2 pieces of info, I feel like a check raise is in order here. So I make it 225 to go. Cutoff folds and the button makes the call. So we're gonna need some help here on the river, and it does not come. Offsuit 8 on the river. Now I'm gonna have to put out some sort of a bet here. I'm left with Jack high. Gonna have to continue to tell a story. I bet $325. He goes into the tank, and he eventually decides on a call. So Jack high is probably not going to win here, and sure enough, he has King 10 for a flop 2 pair. So that's pretty unfortunate. I don't know if I really love my bet sizing there in the river. I think I had about 250 left behind my 325 bet. I probably should have just jammed it. The 325 bet did not get it done. He at least tanked for a little bit. Thought about it, didn't snap call, so I guess it was close decision. But I don't know. People don't like to fold, you know? So the bluff doesn't work. Not sure I love my sizing there. I think my line is okay since we blocked the straight, but stuck early in this game. So hoping this next table is a good one, and we can claw back a little bit. Back to the grind, back to it. All right, so hopping back in here, some analysis from the driveway. So in this hand, I have the button straddle on. There's 3 limpers, and I look down at pocket 8s on the button. I make it 55 to go, and only the first limper calls. Heads up to a flop of 8-5 deuce rainbow. He checks it over to me, and the board is so dry, and we have
so many value hands covered that I decided to check it back and hope that he improves on a turn card. Turn card is an offsuit king, which I think, in my opinion, is actually a bad card because that should help my range more than his. He checks it over to me again, and I'm just going to try and go for some small value here, trying to induce him a little bit. I put a tiny bet out there, bet $25. He mucks before I can even put the chip into the pot. So top sets, always nice, except when you have the board so crushed that they have absolutely zero. So in this hand, there's an early position raised to 15. I was down at Queen 10 offsuit. The initial raiser had been very active in this game, playing almost every single hand. I want to try and ISO him with a 3-bet. Seems like a decent candidate, the Queen 10 offsuit, so I make it 50 to go. Folds back to him and he calls. Flop is another good one for us. Flop is Queen 10-7 rainbow. So he flops top 2, he checks it, I bet $60. He makes the call. Turn is a 9 of spades. Brings a backdoor flush draw and makes the board pretty wet. He checks it over to me again, and I want to keep betting here because there's lots of hands that I can continue to get value from. I don't want to just check it back out of fear of who knows what. So not willing to pot control, especially versus this opponent, so I bet $125. He casually makes the call, so we're off to a river card, which is an offsuit jack. 4 to a straight up there now. Board getting a little bit scary, perhaps. He checks it over to me again, and I'm happy to check back now at 4 to a straight. He rolls over, Queen Jack offsuit. It's just not going our way. Not going our way tonight. Things not falling into place. I'm gonna lose this one as well. Alright, just wrapping it up over here at Caesars. The game that I was in broke. I don't feel like moving to a 4th game over here, so gonna make the walk back to Bellagio now. And maybe check out the 5-10 games and at least take a look at them, see what they look like, possibly hop in there and try to get unstuck. Let me do some math real quick and see how much we're down on the evening. So I lose $820 after being in for $2,100 and cashing out $1,280. Wrapping it up over here. It's just about 6 in the morning. Back on that perfectly normal sleep schedule, you know? Right back on it. Perfectly opposite. Sun's up, time to leave the Bellagio. Not exactly the most eventful of sessions. It was on the shorter side. What did we play for? Maybe 3.5 or 4 hours, so medium length. So not a lot of hands to report. I guess the most interesting one happened when I looked down at pocket aces from under the gun. Playing 6-handed, I make it 30 to go. Middle position player calls. The button 3 bets to 130. Small blind folds. Big blind 4 bets to 330. I think we're playing somewhere around 1600 effective. What do you do? What do you do here facing a cold 4-bet? Flat, min-raise, jam? To be honest, I'm not really sure. I'm not sure what's ideal. It doesn't happen too often facing a cold 4-bet when you open under the gun with aces. I feel like if I flat has its positives and negatives, putting in the 5-bet just feels so strong, but flatting allows the players behind me to have a very reasonable price to come along and get there, basically. Jamming seems like that puts too much pressure on
Some medium strength hands, obviously folds out all bluffs. Not sure I love the jam there. The min raise 5-bet. I don't know, that looks strong too. So I went with a 5-bet. I made it 600. Button thinks for a while, kind of shows his neighbor his cards. Folds what to me looks very likely like pocket kings. He doesn't actually show his hand to the table, but folds back to the big blind, who goes into the tank. He's talking to me a little bit. I'm not really responding. He finds a fold as well. So we take it down pre-flop. It's a net gain of like $450 without a flop, so can't complain about that, but obviously don't get the maximum. So that was the most interesting hand. Aside from that, just grinding a little bit, but nothing major. We end up booking a win over here at the Bellagio of $650. So after the $818 loss at Caesars, that comes out to a loss of 168 or something like that. Somewhat anticlimactic. $168 loss, pretty close to break even, playing 2-5 and 5-10. So back to it tomorrow. I would have maybe stayed longer, but this eye is not feeling too well. I hope I don't have an eye infection. That would be kind of annoying. We can't have that in the middle of the World Series of Poker.